Hey, this is Xenu, and you're listening to Anti Moonboy News. We're on episode 30, and we got a good one for you today. Lots of stuff to talk about. We got some Michael Saylor, idiocy. We're going to be talking about Qubic, mining Monero, and what that means for the mining network. And we're going to have an update on full chain membership proofs. Also, I am going to be going over Ross Ulbrichts' recent presentation at the Bitcoin conference. So lots to get to today. Now, we start the show off with Superchats. I didn't receive any this week, so we're going to skip right through this. But if you would like to donate to the show, you can send me a Superchat at xmrchat.com/Xenu, and I'll read your question, respond to it, etc. Or you can just send me a comment. But yeah, we'll just skip right through this. By the way, because I'm now back from vacation, my merch is now the store's reopened again because obviously I can't send t-shirts when I'm on vacation. So if you go to antimoonboy.com/merch, you can find links to my different t-shirts on there if you'd like to buy a shirt. Now, to start the show, we're going to be talking about Monerokon. It's in a couple weeks, and I got some good news for you. If you're on the fence about going, you can use a promo code from me and get 20% off. It's antimoonboy20. I will have a link in the description if you want to go to it, and you get 20% off your Monerokon ticket. How cool is that? I'm not getting any commission for this, by the way, so just to be clear. I'm doing this just because I love the conference. I would love to go myself. I'm not going to be able to. But as kind of a promotion for people who are still on the fence, you can use that promo code and get 20% off a ticket. So yeah, I actually have the schedule pulled up here, and I'm taking a look at it now. And I mean, this thing is jam-packed with, the brightest minds out there right now in Monero. On Friday, you have Andreas opening things, followed by Dr. Sarang, and then Jeffro, followed by Rucknium. And Rucknium's presentation is important to note because I am going to be doing the narration for it. That's right. I am recording a presentation of Rucknium's material. To be clear, he's doing the script. I'm not smart enough to do that. But yeah, I am going to be actually doing the presentation. I will say, though, a little disappointed because the schedule does not mention that I am doing the narration. It just says Rucknium's name. I think it should also say guest speaker Xenu, maybe, or surprise guest Xenu. Something like that. No? Okay. I'm kidding. And also, I'm going to be doing a second presentation that Rucknium has about spy nodes. So that should be really cool. I will be recording those probably next week. I haven't actually gotten the script yet from Rucknium. But once I get that, I'll record that. And if you are attending Monerokon, you'll be able to hear me. But yeah, looking through this, you also have Justin Ehrenhofer. You got Arctic Mine. Yeah, lots of just big names here with some really interesting topics such as full chain membership proof fee models and the concept of a payment channel with Monero. There's another, it looks like a presentation here about Soxtrace, proxy leak detector for anonymity focused network applications. That sounds freaking awesome. So yeah, so much cool stuff to do. It's taking place over the course of 3 days. It's in the Czech Republic, and everyone who goes to this enjoys it, from what I understand. I would really love to go next year. I'm really planning on it, but this year I will be there, sort of. So if you are going, check out those Rucknium presentations, and of course, there's so many presentations to check out anyways. It should be a fantastic time. But yeah, back home, back from the beach. Had a great time. Good time with the family. We played a couple board games while we were there. Figure I'd give some shout outs. One game was called Cockroach Poker. And if you've never played it, probably the best party game. Or at least, maybe not the best, but like it's super simple. It's just a deck of cards with 8 suits, 8 cards of each suit. And each suit is just a different like insect. So you have 8 cockroaches, 8 stink bugs, 8 spiders, and the artwork is fun and cute. And basically, you look at somebody else at the table. You can pick someone else at the table with your hand, and you pass them a card face down, and you just say, "This is a blank." So this is a cockroach, for example, or this is a stink bug. And the other person has to say, yes, it is, or no, it's not. Or they can pick the card up, look at the card, and then pass it to somebody else, repeating that action. And if they do say yes or no, the round ends and the card's flipped over, and whoever loses has to take that card and put it in front of them. So it's like basically just a bluffing game, and that's it. It's the easiest game, and we had a blast playing that. So I highly recommend getting that for like hanging out with your friends, having some drinks. We also played this game called Puerto Rico, which is essentially you have like this farm and you're like building stuff and farming. That's literally the game. It was awesome. I did end up winning by 1 point. Came down to the wire, but I prevailed in the end. So that was a good game as well. So shout out to Cockroach Poker and Puerto Rico. And last week was weird because there was like all this like drama stuff going on with the community, and I dropped my kind of response to that, and it seems like everyone liked it, so that was cool. And everyone has moved on, I think. To be honest, I don't know. I haven't really been browsing social media that much. It seems like things have died down though, because I haven't like seen some shit flinging. Like last week, like before the podcast was released, that was just ridiculous. People were like being way too personal, and it was just not fun. But I think everyone now has gotten to the point where it's like, okay, that shit was cringe, which is good. So I think everyone's kind of moved on from that, which is nice. Now, I do want to say, though, so last week, I released my episode, and one thing I've been doing for these podcasts is like a couple days before I drop the podcast, I'll kind of post like a summary of the things I'm going to talk about, right? And I do that because I'm trying to hook people in to listen to it. I don't know if it's working or not, but like, it gets good engagement on Twitter. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get engagement so people will kind of make a habit of every Monday coming to listen to my podcast, right? And so it was probably Saturday or Sunday when I tweeted about full chain membership proofs because, I was aware that there had been some roadblocks and, some things had to be worked on, blah, blah, blah. Well, the thing was, when I put that tweet out, I didn't realize that like pretty much nobody was aware of this, and it kind of went like viral actually. And like a bunch of people started like freaking out. And so, in retrospect, I probably should have been I should have handled that with a little more care, I guess. I am apologizing for that, for not doing the news in a better way or announcing the news in a better way. Now, to be clear, I absolutely am taking advantage of the fact that I can hook people into listening to my podcast, and I will continue to do that. Okay, to be very clear. However, if it is something that isn't known to people, I guess I have to put more care, I guess, into announcing that like ahead of time. So my bad about that. We will be talking about full chain membership proofs in a sec. Actually, we're going to lead off with that. We're going to talk about or update on that, kind of give some more context of what is happening. But I just want to kind of say that I probably should have worded that a little better. And I don't know if Monero dumped because of the news. If it did, though, that'd be pretty based from an anti-Moonboy perspective. I have a feeling that Monero kind of just corrected just because it was like absolutely nuclear for, that was like a month where it was just pumping endlessly. But now that things have kind of quieted down again, I don't know, maybe it was a reaction to full chain membership proofs being delayed. But I'm not sure. I guess I don't know for sure. Another thing, a correction I want to put out regarding Support XMR. A couple weeks ago, I tweeted out about how they were taking Tari rewards, not giving them to people. I guess that was just wrong, or at least initially it was just not reported correctly. I saw a tweet from Fluffy Pony, but I guess this was rectified. So I should have updated people on that news. So I'm apologizing for a lot of things today. Usually I don't apologize for anything, I guess. I have a good track record. This is just myself, kind of going back and thinking, like looking at tweets I made, and I was just like, oh yeah, I probably should have done some stuff better. So we are improving here at Anti Moonboy News by the day. So, all right, with that out of the way, let's move on to full chain membership proofs. So yeah, regarding full chain membership proofs, I got a tweet thread here from CipherStack, and they are the auditing company who is taking a look at full chain membership proofs, and they put out a statement kind of summarizing what they're doing. So this is what they said. Hi, it's me, the people working on full chain membership proofs. It's delayed because divisors, a technology that leads to big efficiency gains that makes full chain membership proofs feasible to deploy, didn't have robust enough proofs when they were first presented by other people. The delay is because people were hoping the CipherStack team would take a look at what was written up and find it sufficient. It wasn't. And we at CipherStack weren't willing to put our name behind putting this on mainnet. And we were right. We found errors and we are correcting them. It goes on to say, that said, we are reasonably confident that ultimately divisors will work in the end and we can prove them secure. We just need to do the ooey gooey math behind it to prove it with the hard numbers. So there's some context here. Divisors, as they said, this has to do with scaling. And there is a alternative method to do divisor, or to do it without divisors, but this would make the scaling a lot more difficult. It's actually, I guess, analogous to bulletproofs and Monero before and after bulletproofs. It was a huge scaling upgrade, right? So this is similar where if the divisor stuff doesn't work out, it would be a huge setback. So then to prove this, there was another audit done by this other company, and CipherStack didn't really agree with some of their findings, or I'm not exactly sure of the wording, but basically they thought there were some inaccuracies with it. And sure enough, they did find some inaccuracies with the divisors portion. And essentially they are working on producing kind of improved proofs for it. And with those improvements, we will have a much more secure protocol. So all else equal, this is kind of just how this whole process works. The math is done, it's looked at, and it's corrected, and then it's looked at again, and everything is good, then we keep going, right? So that's essentially what's happening. Are we behind schedule? No, not really. We're kind of just, staying on course. It's not ahead of schedule, but it's kind of just in the ballpark of where we should be. How long is this going to take? It could take 1 month. It could take 6 months from here until this all is done. Kind of unclear. I would say probably sooner than later. I don't think it's going to take another 6 months for this. But at this point, we're kind of just waiting for this update. And because of all the demand behind this, I don't think this is going to be something that's going to be dragged out. People really want to see full chain membership proofs. Tons of demand. So this isn't something that's being taken lightly. I saw some stuff on Twitter this week of people, acting like, there's only like one mercenary dev doing the work. No, this is a collaboration of many different smart people. And the stakes are real here. Monero is actually used, right? And because Monero is used, this is being looked at by a lot of different eyes. And we can't screw this up, right? We only got, we can't release something that's broken. That would be completely, that would be terrible. It would be irresponsible. So that's the opposite of what we're doing. Basically, this is what we're waiting on. Now, in the meantime, there is also a testnet that hasn't been created yet. The reason it hasn't been created yet is likely, well, it is because of this whole divisors thing. And so the idea here is if the testnet is worked on, it would be redundant if we're waiting for the math to be proved for the divisors. So basically, we need to get this audit completed, and then the testnet will be the focus. I guess there is some bugs with that testnet now, but it's just not finished yet. Or I think technically that's the stress net, not the testnet. The stress testnet, I guess, would be the nomenclature. But anyways, so this is from Ulbrichts XMR. He has his estimates of when he thinks things are going to go on. These are estimates, not official, but he thinks the implementation, which is again basically the testnet, that should be in September, with the audits also in September, and effectively this will be a working implementation that can be used on a testnet of full chain membership proofs. And then between September and January, they're going to fix the issues on this and, just update everything, make sure everything's running well. And then around January of 2026, it would be the binaries would be released for the mainnet. So we'll see. This is optimistic that, early 2026 we'll have full chain membership proofs. I definitely don't think it's going to be 2027. I saw some people saying that. I highly doubt that. And, honestly, I think a lot of people were asking ChatGPT because I don't know where the 2027 stuff came from because no one's been saying that. Reasonably, though, Q1 2026 is absolutely in reach. And I would say that's probably the most likely. But who knows, right? We could hit other roadblocks along the way. But yeah, that's basically it with full chain membership proofs. I'll have more information next week because literally every Wednesday there's a Monero Research Lab, and this is like the top issue right now. They're talking about it every week. So I'll definitely have another update next week. I'm also kind of winging this podcast today because I'm recording this at like 5 p.m. on Monday. So hopefully I can get this out by the end of the night before I go to bed. It might be a Tuesday morning release. Hopefully not, though. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. So during my vacation, I listened to two different presentations while I was on a walk. One day, it was like Thursday or Friday. I went on a nice long walk. It was like a 2-hour walk. It was freaking awesome, right? Went on this long walk, and I listened to two different things. One thing was awesome. It was inspirational. It was, it was great. And the other thing was awful. Okay. The first thing I listened to was Ross Ulbricht's speech at Bitcoin, which we're going to talk about first. I want to start on a high note. And then I listened to the most recent preferred stock offering by Michael Saylor and his company Strategy. They've rebranded MicroStrategy now to just Strategy. And his latest offering. And that was awful. So we're going to talk about that next. But first, let's talk about the Ross Ulbrichts presentation because this was great, right? And with Ross Ulbricht, before you listen to this speech, if you haven't yet, which you should do, by the way, it's a really good speech that I think highlights a lot of the meta topics that are surrounding Bitcoin and Monero and cryptocurrency. But before you listen to this speech, you should go and listen to Ross's presentation he did in 2021 when he was in jail. It's an incredible speech he gave. He's doing it literally through a phone, which he's calling from jail. He got in trouble for doing this. And it's a very powerful listen because basically, it's somebody who is in complete despair. I talk about this in Darknet Market Maximalism where, he was just completely heartbroken and in total despair, totally broken, basically. And it's really upsetting to listen to because, I view a lot of my crypto anarchism through someone like Ross. And I don't view Ross as a bad guy at all. I just view him as an idealistic, young individual who shares kind of the viewpoints of a free market with me, right? And unfortunately, he did go to jail and he did time, but fortunately, he's now out, right? So if that presentation he did where he was just, totally being down by the system, this is like the complete inverse of that because he's out of prison now. He's happy. Literally the first 10 minutes of this speech was just kind of him being like talking about how it's amazing being out of prison and there's all this new technology and stuff, which is kind of not necessarily that interesting at the start of it, but it's understandable, right? Because he's completely overwhelmed, and I can imagine that. But as it gets going, though, it gets into some really interesting things. So first off, the first thing is Ross contrasts winning freedom versus what it's like to lose freedom. I found this to be really insightful, right? Gaining freedom instead of losing it. Because losing freedom is it's incremental, right? A lot of us don't even realize it's happening. But slowly they're boiling that frog, right? Slowly they're snipping away at things. But when you kind of push back and you get a win back, it doesn't happen often, seemingly. But when it does happen, it's an incredible feeling, right? And so this is why we have to draw lines in the sand and push back, right? And so what Ross was kind of saying is being confined in prison where you don't have anything to really look forward to. You can either comply and be beaten down, or you can look at it from a different perspective. And I really like that because he emphasizes that freedom is worth the struggle. And it absolutely is. My life feels so much more fulfilling with me making this podcast and being a crypto anarchist, right? Fighting back against the state. It might not be giving me I'm not getting a salary by doing this, but the struggle is worth it. It feels good helping out other people. It feels good inspiring other people. That's why we're here. Now, Ross, he goes on to say that he eventually got used to being in prison. And he compares that to how we're used to this draconian surveillance that we're in right now, that we're kind of just complacent with it, and that this is really dangerous, that complacency is very dangerous. Now, of course, the major quote that kind of came out of this was his three things, characteristics of Bitcoin and of peer-to-peer cash, which is freedom, decentralization, and unity. And he tells a story about these wasps at a house that he was renting or something, and how the wasps are decentralized and that they are free to do what they want and they are a menace. But because they weren't united, he was able to pick them apart. It's a simple story, but it kind of highlights the point of his speech. Essentially, the tribalism that is permeating all throughout cryptocurrency, that is getting in the way of unity. And I think he's right in a lot of ways. That tribalism is a huge impediment to improving. Especially when, and this is the one thing I would say that Ross maybe misses, is that greed is kind of at the background of all this. He doesn't call this out specifically, but I think this is really the kind of the bigger picture, is that greed has gotten in the way of utility. And he doesn't really mention this. However, he's 100% right that freedom is great, right? The decentralization is great. And the unity of everybody, that's what's going to drive things forward, right? And without that unity, everyone's kind of working against each other, whether they know it or not. I think this is all great. But driving that lack of unity is greed. And it's also politics as well. It's kind of pro-state or anti-state. And I'm not sure if there can be unity with something like that. I 100% agree, though, with this idea, though, that like decentralization is really the most important thing that we can focus on with blockchains, right? Having choices, right? And spreading out your project around the world with different nodes, different infrastructure, different people researching, things, and more eyes on the code. Different types of cryptocurrencies, different uses of cryptocurrencies. And it's not just cryptocurrency too. It's open software in general. Linux, for example. Having an operating system that I can use on my computer is freaking awesome. And I have many different options. Having those choices, really, it makes a big deal, right? To have the freedom to do that, to not be forced into using something is also a big deal. And the unified kind of thing that we can get behind when it comes to open source software in general is the concept of that open source software being non-proprietary, but free as in freedom, right? Being there, not being invasive on your rights, and, something that you can audit if you looked into it, right? I think these are things like the fundamentals of open source software. That's what we can all agree on. That's kind of the politics of it. The last thing too that he says, and this is probably the best quote from it, he says that choice is the essence of freedom. And yeah, I've been thinking about that all week, really. It's true. To have the choice of, what type of operating system am I going to use, right? To have the choice of like, what do I want to do today to improve my OPSEC or to improve my knowledge or stuff, right? To have that freedom to choose. I think that's just a fantastic quote. And I think that it is applicable to many different things. So overall, I thought it was a fantastic speech. And of course, the maximalist side of it, they were definitely kind of shook up by some of the things he brought up, especially with the whole concept of looking at other blockchains. It was pretty ballsy of Ross to do that. And yeah, the pushback was not that much, right? Some people got mad, but whatever. We need more people speaking out against that. So yeah, check that speech out if you do have the chance. Definitely worth the time. And after that good vibe, I then had to listen to Michael Saylor. After listening to this presentation, it's like an hour. And by the way, I encourage all my listeners to check out this presentation. It's on Stride, which is the latest offering by Saylor. After I listened to that, I what I felt like? I felt like Steve Carell in The Big Short, where he's kind of like, he's got like his hair's like all like wild, and he's just like looking like he's got that look on his face like, are you fucking kidding me? That kind of look. That's kind of how I felt while I was listening to this presentation. Because I guess I haven't really been paying attention to what Saylor's been doing at all recently. I was aware of MSTR, that stock, and MicroStrategy stock has been very volatile and all that, but I wasn't aware that is only the tip of the iceberg. He's now doing a lot of these other things for Bitcoin torque, as he puts it. And really what he's doing is he's making shitcoins. I swear to God, he's offering these stock these stocks. It's preferred stock is the technical term. And they're basically these high yield shitcoins. I'm not even joking. And he's selling them for money that he then buys Bitcoin with. It's crazy. And so anyways, I'm like listening to this presentation, and it's kind of the reality is slowly hitting me. Like, here's the thing. I already knew this guy was a piece of garbage. I already knew that, like, all right, MicroStrategy is probably going to fail again, right? Now I'm convinced. I'm like completely convinced now. I don't know how much longer this is going to go on, but I think we're at the beginning of the end. I really do believe that. And I'm just now starting to dig into this, but it is a rabbit hole that I did not realize was happening. But it makes sense now that you have other companies now stepping up to do this, because this is a racket. And if you can get in early on it, you can make a lot of money. And I don't mean that in a good way, because a lot of people are going to get in and a lot of people are going to lose money. And, you know, I'm not saying what Saylor's doing is necessarily illegal. I don't think it is. But it's only existing based on this naive belief that Bitcoin's number is always going to go up. Because it's not always going to go up. And it's highly concerning that there's a lot of people who think like that, especially with these highly volatile stocks that they're now trading, such as Stride, for example. So I have a Twitter thread that summarizes all of this by this guy, Duo9. You can find his Twitter at DU09BTC. It's a tweet thread about MicroStrategy, which I'm going to expand on as we go. But it starts out by saying MicroStrategy will crash in a spectacular fashion if Saylor does not change course. Here's why. Saylor is creating money from thin air to buy more Bitcoin. He mints new MicroStrategy shares at will and sells them to buy more Bitcoin. Smart, right? Except there's a catch. How does Saylor create free money? He simply issues these MicroStrategy shares at zero cost basis and sells them during at-the-market ATM offerings. People buy those shares, and Saylor buys Bitcoin with the profit. So who's the dumb money? It's the MicroStrategy holders. They buy because if the demand is greater than the supply, that means they have premium on MicroStrategy. But by creating more and more shares, holders of MicroStrategy are diluted. But why would that be a worry if the price continues to go up? Well, the problem is the price doesn't always go up. It goes down in a bear market. And like in the last time there was a bear market, MicroStrategy crashed 90%. So if this happens again, I mean, you better believe MicroStrategy is going to crash again, probably even worse because it, you know, has gone up so violently recently. The thing is, Saylor is now issuing and promising yields between 8 to 10% on preferred shares called STRK and STRF, or Strike and Strife. In the case of the STRF shares, the yield is in perpetuity at a fixed rate of 10% on $100. So where does the yield come from? And this is, so I'm stepping back here. This is what people aren't getting, okay? If you have a product that has yield, that yield has to be from something. But with MicroStrategy, they're not producing anything. So the yield is coming from the people who are buying the product. They are themselves generating the yield. And this is a classic example of a pyramid scheme. So essentially, people are buying these preferred stocks to get these fixed payouts. And they think that this is just always going to exist. So the people who are buying these, what they're doing is they're buying them at the market offerings. And that bulk price of it is going to 1, Bitcoin, and 2, is going to the payouts of these products. It's just going to get worse and worse over time because they need more and more new money to come in to continue paying for these dividends. Because the thing is, the company, they don't generate any value really. Their value is in the collateral of Bitcoin that they hold. And if you saw last week, we don't even know for sure if they're holding it. And this is the craziest part. With Michael Saylor now basically being like, oh, we don't want to provide proof. How do we even know they have collateral? like what's holding this all together? It's freaking insane. So essentially what you have here is a loop. Saylor creates shares to buy more Bitcoin. He then gets more collateral because he has more Bitcoin. So then he creates more shares to buy more Bitcoin. It's a loop, right? It just keeps going and going. The problem, though, is what happens when it goes the other direction. Because the thing is, if there's any like type of risk that comes into play, it goes in the opposite direction. And of course, this means liquidation. The thing is, you can't redeem your MicroStrategy shares for Bitcoin. You hold, these people are holding shares. They're not holding Bitcoin. The Bitcoin that Saylor is buying is collateral to new debt. So basically, he's acting like a bank and printing shares. Again, this is from Duo9. I am kind of reading it off of him. But, you know, I essentially was like reaching this conclusion. I was trying to find like a video that kind of summarized my thoughts on this. And then I found this tweet thread and I was like, oh yeah, this is money. You know, really what Saylor's doing is he's fractional reserve lending. I don't think he holds the Bitcoin. And he's putting out these like now these stock offerings, which are just these like yield farming complete shit coins. And people are buying it because they're degenerate gamblers. You also have this thing called MSTY, where people are gambling on the volatility of Bitcoin. It's a rabbit hole. I'm telling you guys, this is freaking insane. And so I'm like listening to all this crap, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So then he starts talking about Stride, which is this other preferred stock. By the way, I'm sorry if I'm confusing you. This is what it was like listening to this freaking presentation. But he starts talking about Stride, and it's a 10% annual payout. Okay, so it's like this high yield, right? And basically, he can turn it off at any point. He can just stop paying, which is like highly concerning. Like why would you buy a payout like this if it could just at any time they could just stop paying out? That's literally a feature of this preferred stock. If anything, that's like completely worrying. Like if they're putting out risky shit like this, they must be really scraping bottom of the barrel to get money to come in on this. Because that is like degenerate junk bond shit. I don't even know what the fuck you would call that. Basically, this is a leverage bet on Bitcoin. And if the prices don't go up for Bitcoin at the rate that they want it to go up, which is way higher than what the diminishing returns are telling us, then they're screwed. And if the price starts to go down, they're going to have to sell. And that's the most worrying part for MicroStrategy. Because if they start selling, the market reaction to that will be brutal. I think this is probably why Saylor isn't revealing any of his like wallet addresses, because he doesn't want people to know that, one, he's not holding their Bitcoin, or two, he's selling their Bitcoin. If either of those things happen, it will nuke the confidence of the market, and the prices of Bitcoin will tank, and then MicroStrategy will have to sell more to help make up for that, which in return will tank the market even more, and then you get a negative feedback loop, right? Because the entire confidence of this market right now is based on Michael Saylor, who is a fraud. It's freaking insane. Anyway, I am now pretty convinced that we're going to enter a death spiral. But here's the crazy part, though. The crazy part is that actually this can keep going because nothing makes sense anymore, and we have a total clown world market. So I don't know. Maybe this is going to keep going. But I encourage people to check out this latest conference call that they did. Give this a listen, and you will know what Steve Carell felt like in The Big Short. That's what you're going to feel like. You're going to just be like, what the fuck? And here's a link from Predator, who I usually dislike on Twitter, but he calls him out too. He says, this is a real slide from the presentation. If they can't raise capital, they intend to sell off their Bitcoin holdings to pay out dividend holder obligations. What could go wrong? It's a negative feedback loop, right? It's a negative feedback loop. It's the exact opposite. Because once they reveal that, oh, well, we have to sell Bitcoin, the entire market is going to tank. And that's even if they have that Bitcoin. I don't think they have that Bitcoin. Or I think that they're exaggerating how much Bitcoin they're holding. I think to keep things afloat, what they're doing is they're like playing around with their accounting, selling some here, rebuying back later, etc. I really wouldn't be surprised if they haven't done that yet, if they will eventually do that, because if they do sell at any point, the market reaction to that will be brutal, right? Otherwise, they're going to have to keep coming up with these like completely ridiculous, yield schemes, like what they did just now with Stride, where it's 10% yield that they can turn off at any point, just to get some more money, and that money will just go right to these dividend payouts that they have. So anyway, it was like such a contrast going from Ross Ulbricht, and I'm like, yes, choice is the essence of freedom. I'm like, vibes are so good. And then I hear Michael Saylor's stupid voice just telling me about how bad things are going to get. And I'm like, man, I did not sign up for this. So anyways, that is the Michael Saylor portion of this. Let's move on to something else. All right, so let's get to the news. Starting off with Qubic and their mining of Monero. So if you have been monitoring the mining pools for Monero, especially recently, you would notice that there is a new pool by Qubic, Qubic. And their pool is actually pretty large. I think they're at like 10% of the network for a relatively new pool. That is impressive. And what is concerning people is that this is actually mining for a project called Qubic. And so, yeah, this might be confusing you as to why this is happening and who the hell these guys are. Now, Qubic itself, it is a scam, or at least it looks very scammy. If you go on Twitter and look it up, it's all bots like talking to each other. The whole thing doesn't make any sense, right? And when you start looking into it, you realize that what they're doing is they are mining Monero and then selling that Monero that they mine and buying Qubic. So essentially, they're doing the Monero Ocean mining pool backwards, because Monero Ocean, they mine other cryptocurrencies and then buy Monero and then give their miners that Monero. In this case, Qubic is mining Monero, selling that Monero for Qubic. And the thing is, the concern for this is that the guy who's like behind this project has said some relatively aggressive comments about how they can get over 51% of the hash rate, things like that. So there's been some concern from people. So yeah, I wanted to get my thoughts on that. The first thing is, this is a free market, right? And so if this guy comes in and actually leads this Qubic mining pool to take over the 51% of RandomX of Monero, he can do that. It is a free market. And it would tell us that maybe we need to make some improvements to RandomX, right? Because RandomX is not perfect. Now, that is the worst case scenario, that they start mining Monero for the sake of trying to destroy it. I don't think that's the case, though. I'm looking at this from a positive perspective, where we're getting new hash rate into Monero. It's people who are just mining Monero in a different pool, so it's decentralized. And not only that, they're selling it, so they're keeping the price down. So if you're someone who actively uses Monero, this is actually like a win-win, right? Again, the negative is if they're doing this just to crash the Monero network, which I don't think they're doing at all. I think it's just somebody who has a lot of bots, because again, if you look into this Qubic stuff, it's very scammy. Now, do I think they're going to get over 50%? Probably not. The difficulty will continue to go up as more of their miners come in. And not only that, they have to hope that the price of Monero stays down and that the price of Qubic continues to go up, right? And they need demand for Qubic as well. And frankly, I don't think there is much demand from this. This is just a flavor of the month shitcoin, right? No one's heard of Qubic. No one will be talking about Qubic 5 months from now. If you go back like a year, we had that project Zephyr. That was mined on RandomX, and I believe their hash rate was, I think it was higher than Monero at one point. Like, they had more miners. Are we concerned about that necessarily? No, it happened. And what happened to Zephyr? No one uses it anymore, right? But why? So why were people mining that? Well, they were mining Zephyr because of the higher profitability from it, right? They had more profitability, so they chased that. With Monero is not as profitable. It really comes down to something as simple as that. And because Qubic right now is profitable, you have more people mining it. And that's not going to last forever. So yeah, I mean, they have gone up, to that, rather large number recently, but can they stay consistent with having 10% of the, mining network? I find that hard to believe. But not the end of the world, though. I do want to kind of make that clear to people who are, maybe somewhat concerned. This isn't really the end of the world. If anything, it's kind of just a reminder that really the best thing that comes along with the price going up is a better mining network, or a more secure mining network. Because, it would suck, frankly, if some guy was able to just rally up a bunch of degenerate, Moonboys and break Random X. that would suck. I don't think that's what's going to happen, though. I think actually it's going to be a good thing, and we're going to have a more decentralized mining pools. So yeah, there is a CCS out for a Monero plugin for BTC Pay. Definitely check that out. This is actually a pretty big deal. A lot of people use this. They are looking for 273 Monero, and let me check what they're at right now. They are at 113 Monero. So if you have some spare Monero, please send this out. This is one of the more important CCS proposals out there, just because a lot of people use this. So having more consistent work on something like this will lead to more adoption, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Moving on, what do we got next? I got a tweet here from Ulbrichts. Apparently, Samourai Wallet filed its motion to dismiss, and new filings suggest that the search and seizure of William Hill's Gmail account may have been unlawful, and William Hill is one of the defendants. So yeah, that's pretty great news. And here we have Orangefren.com. They released their searches for May, and Monero came in first, 42%, Bitcoin second, 24%, Litecoin at 11%, ETH at 7%. So yeah, good stuff to see here. However, on Orangefren, it should be noted that they had a record amount of payments routed through their Lightning Network node. And it looks like June is also seeing an influx of payments as well relative to other things. So that's good for Lightning. I guess they are starting to see an uptick in usage on Orangefren, which is a CoinSwap protocol for Monero. So that's cool to see. And with that, I'm going to end things. So merch is available at antimoonboy.com/merch. You can also find Darknet Market Maximalism on that website, as well as an archive of all my podcasts. Next Monday, I will have another episode of Anti Moonboy News. And yeah, that's all I have to say today. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.